Hi, welcome to the Lone Star Dowsers. This is our October program, and I am Mary Lindsey Wilson, your program director. Let me go ahead and read some announcements. Uh, the Flagstaff Dowsers Conference is this week. It started today and it goes through the 21st. So if you have an opportunity, if you're in Flagstaff, and I think they may also have some things that people can participate online. I'm not quite sure, but in the newsletter, we do have a link to the Flagstaff Dowsers Conference. So there are lots of ways you can participate and lots of incredible dowsers that will be present and sharing their wealth of information on a variety of topics. Let's see, we also have our Tucson dowsers who every week do aid and relief from fires, drought, heat waves, and floods. And that's every Tuesday. So it's short and sweet. It's a 15-minute thing that you can join your energy and make a difference. And we also have on Thursday nights Dowsing for the Planet. These are both on Zoom. And these are hosted by our friends in Australia, Heather Wilkes and Francis Peterson. So that link is also in our newsletter. So if you want to contribute to the planet and hang out with other like-minded people, join in. And I also want to say if you find value in these programs, please put your money on what supports and contributes to you. So if you would like to make a donation to Emily or I, Emily is our newsletter goddess, and she's got a watch party at the Aurora Chapel. So shout out to all those people. So if you're in Houston, you can watch together. But we really appreciate if you have made a contribution or donation. It's very much appreciated. And if you would like to, we have various ways that you can contribute. You can do it old-fashioned with a check. You can do it with PayPal. You can do it with Zelle. We accept most forms of payment. So, all right. Thank you so much. All right. I think that is it for announcements. And I'm going to introduce myself. So, I'm Mary Lindsey Wilson, and I'm the founder of Live Beautifully. And for me, that's a philosophy, right? It's a lifestyle, and it's just the way I do everything and look at everything. So my intention, especially with the dowsing program, but in most things, is to educate, inspire, and I always want to offer tools that you can help yourself and other people. I think that's what we're here to do. So many of you know me as the program chair for the Lone Star Dowsers. Now, this is a position that I have held for the last 5 years, and I enjoy very much doing it and interviewing people and bringing wonderful information to you all. Other people may know me as an award-winning interior designer. I've had a background in interior design for quite a while, and still practice. And what you might not know is that I have been energetically aware my entire life. So I have most of the clear senses, the clairvoyance, clairaudient, clairsentient, and synesthesia. And I didn't even realize that I had these things. I thought everybody did, right? It wasn't until later people were describing things that you realized that, oh, that's a thing. Well, yeah. So synesthesia is I hear color and I feel color. So that makes it really kind of cool to do my work in design. But it spills over into lots of other things. And I also can see a range of colors that maybe not everyone can see. So it's like a broader spectrum. So, um, you know, these senses have really served me very well as a designer and a coach, allowing me to literally intuit what's needed for clients. So, um, some of you are familiar with feng shui, like energetically. So there's a bagua, right? The bagua is the 9 grid. Um, it's like a format that you put over your home, right? That tells you different areas like the wealth corner, the helpful people, health and family and knowledge, all those different things. So for me, sometimes it's like it's lit up, or if there's an area that's dark, right? I'll go, oh, this area needs attention, and I can gather that usually just from talking to people too. It's not, I don't always have to set foot in your home. But anyway, those are just some of the ways that I play with energy. And I have what I really believe to be a holistic approach, that it brings harmony to your body, your mind, your spirit, and your environment, right? They're not separate. They all work really closely together. And when one's out of balance, it usually shows up in some form or another. And I believe that our spaces are living energy fields that reflect and influence every part of our lives. So, how did I end up here? I was introduced to dowsing by my aunt, who was a spiritual mentor to me. She was always blazing the trail to new and really interesting things. And I just had this hunger and curiosity that couldn't be quenched. So if you think of a class or a training, I have probably taken it and been certified in it. So it's this lifelong love of learning. I will say that my dowsing practice has come a very long way since when I first started. I couldn't even get, the pendulum to move. I was like, it won't move. It's just, I thought there was something wrong with me, so I have come a very long way with my dowsing. And, um, being a curious person, I always want to dive deeper. I don't want to hang out. I'm not satisfied at the surface level. So, diving deeper um, is really learning more, right? So, and learning to me has to do with asking the right questions. I believe that asking the right questions affects everything, whether you realize it or not. Most of us use Google to search for things, right? We have some kind of a search engine that we use and we put in what we're looking for. And I think everybody has experienced, if you put in a certain question or certain phrase, you'll get a particular set of answers. If you get more specific, you get even more specific information. And if you have a general query, you get really broad-based information. So I think dowsing is very much the same. And many of us are using AI, right? Chat GPT. It's kind of the same thing. It can be a great tool. But again, what kind of questions are you asking? You have to have your discernment. You have to, we are the guides, right? We have to guide, what information are we looking for? What do we want to fine tune? It's not, as you all know, it's not really a one and done. There's always layers to everything. So, this is just especially true with dowsing. So tonight, um, I want us to learn how to ask the right questions for accurate dowsing. And maybe we've dowsed a lot, and maybe some of you are new to dowsing. I think there was someone in the chat that said they were new to dowsing, and I'm thrilled that you're here. And I know people in the future are going to be watching this, but it's always great to be reminded of basic things. So we're going to look at how to prepare. So when you douse, there's a preparation that, is involved, and it can be quick, but I wouldn't skip it. We're going to learn about intention. That's an important piece of this. And ethics, that plays a part in influencing dowsing and the answers that you will get. And also how to gain clarity. Because a lot of times you think what you want to ask is clear, but it is not. It's kind of, that saying, clear as mud. Um, so I want everyone to be able to get more clarity about what it is they want to know. And then we can formulate the questions. And then if we have problems, I've got, a whole list of things that we can address for problem solving and tools that have been very helpful to me. So I hope you brought your questions because we're going to have time to address them. So, what is dowsing? To me, dowsing is searching for. It's looking for and gathering information. That's really what it's about. Is there water here? How deep is the water? Where is my lost object? Is this a beneficial job? Is this person in integrity, right? I mean, it's just all information, right? Should I or shouldn't I? We're looking for information with dowsing. So to get accurate information, there's lots of things to consider, like the preparation, our intention, ethics, our clarity, how to formulate our question, and then if you're not getting accurate information, how you can problem solve. I also would like to clarify that your pendulum or your dowsing tool does not have the power and it does not have the answer. I have people tell me, well, my pendulum said such and such, and it's not your pendulum that is giving you the answer. That does not have the power. The kingdom of God is within you. What we need to know is available to us. Your pendulum or your tool that you're using is really the consciousness and your higher self. So it's like when you write, does the pen hold the answers? No, it does not. It is the tool that's writing the message, right? The so when we install the dowsing system program, you don't have to repeat it each time you dowse. Your subconsciously will automatically respond to your pre-programmed instructions. So it's like riding a bike, driving a car, brushing your teeth. You don't have to reprogram yourself, teach yourself how to do it each time. It's almost autopilot. You know how to do it. So I think dowsing can be like that, but we want to start with a good solid foundation, and the preparation is part of that. Let's see. If anybody has a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat as I'm going, and I'll try to look at it, and then we'll definitely get to a place where we drill down and help you get clarity for your questions. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to screen share. I made a little PowerPoint for us. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Okay, tell me if, can you see this slide? Will somebody give me like a thumbs up if you,
No, can't see it.
no? Okay, hang on and let me see. Okay. Maybe screens. There we go. Okay. All right, so now you guys can see it, right? Okay. So how to ask the right questions for dowsing. Let's see. Okay. I've done a little bit of this. Let me Keep going. All right, so preparation. So first off, we want to be in a neutral state because you want your channel clear. It's just the simplest way I can put it. So I'd like us all to just do a very brief meditation, and that's so you have this little practice under your belt and that you can do it anytime, anywhere. And it's not just for dowsing, you can do this for anything. There's a meditation that's called the box breath, and people in the military do this. You know, they have to have a clear and neutral mind when they're in very intense situations. Lots of people do it. So um, it's rhythmic breathing that activates your sympathetic nervous system, and it creates like a calm state, a state of neutrality. So when we have a clear and calm mind, it allows for our higher levels of consciousness to be present. So you want to remove distractions, ideally, right? And don't douse while driving. I have done this. I have been asked to do this. It's not a great idea. So, all right. So let's do a little short meditation, and I want you to put your feet on the floor, sit upright, and we're gonna just do really simple breathing techniques. So the box breath is 4 seconds of breathing in. So you can just breathe in and count to four, and then you hold your breath for 4 seconds, count to four, and then you exhale for 4 seconds on the count of four, and then you hold, and then you do it again. So let's do this together. So we're going to breathe in, and we're holding, and we're exhaling. And we're holding, and we're breathing in. If we haven't breathed in already, we're holding, and we're exhaling. And then we're going to breathe in, we're going to hold, we're going to exhale for four, and then you can repeat as many times as you need to for that. I want you to do it a couple times on your own. So breathe in for four, hold for four, exhale for four, hold for four, breathe in for four, hold for four, and exhale for four. So you might notice that you are feeling more present, more calm, more neutral. So if you're not, I would do some more breathing. But if you notice, a shift, and you can do that with yourself, you can do it with other people. If you're around somebody who maybe had some shocking news or has an upset, that's a great, really simple tool to get people in their body and very present. And that's where you want to be when you're dowsing. So now that we are in this calm state of neutrality, we want to clear our field. Okay. So clearing your field, there's several ways you can do it. You can imagine that you are standing under a waterfall and that it is just washing anything that's not of the highest vibration or light for you. And it can be you, it can be all around you. You know, you may want to do that. Maybe you're more comfortable with your pendulum, so you're going to do, a counterclockwise motion, right? And clear your field. And if you're using your pendulum, then you let it swing until it gets to a neutral state. And you can check and maybe you feel a subtle difference. Maybe you check with your pendulum, if you're clear, your field is clear. And then after we clear our fields, we want to go ahead and energize our field. So that could look several different ways. You may imagine like this fabulous big pillar of light that you just step into, and you just allow yourself to be energized. On Star Trek, when they would want to travel to different places, they'd step and, they'd say, "Beam me up, Scotty." But you'd see it just would be like this pillar of light. It can be anything that your imagination can come up with that you want to energize your field. So you've cleared it, you've cleaned it. Now we're going to just energize, right? Bring everything up to optimal level. So once you're energized, whatever way that was. And if you're new to dowsing, you may want to, just check, right? Check, my field is, I think a good question is energized to optimal level, yes or no. Or you can do a percentage. My field is energized to what percentage, and get it to a percentage that you are, um, ideally 100%. So, um, once you've got your uh, field energized, then you want to go ahead and ask for protection. So, you can do that any which way. Maybe you have angels, maybe you have spirit guides. You It's going to be different for everybody. You can ask for protection, you can ask for guidance, you can ask for support. I know Raymond Grace talks about spirit guides a lot. Some people really resonate with angels or Archangel Michael. It doesn't, you can, and maybe you're not comfortable with any of that. You can just ask your higher self, your higher level of consciousness to, you know, that you intend for to be protected, and that you will receive the right guidance, and that you will have the support that is needed, for your accurate dowsing. So you ask for these things, right? I mean, ask and it is given. Ask, ask. You cannot ask for too much. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Ask for what you want. So once you feel like you have your protection and your guidance and your support, a lot of people recommend sealing your field, right? We have an energy field around us. And if you want to play and improve your dowsing, you can ask how big your field is, right? You know, how if you have dowsing rods, how far out does your field go? But you don't even have to get that specific. You can have that intention that your field is sealed, so that you're not inviting non-beneficial energies into your field. You're not having hitchhikers and unwanted company come in. And some people cloak. Some people like to cloak their field once it's sealed with invisibility, so that they can go in and do what they want to do without interference. So, you may want to cloak your field. And some people take that extra step and they will scramble the energies that are outside of the field that you have cloaked. So it's just kind of like more layers of protection. And I think as you douse, and depending on what you are dowsing for, you may want different levels and layers of protection. This is just information, that can assist you in your process. So does everybody feel like they're kind of clear on the our basic preparation? don't know if I can see the chat while I'm doing this. I'm gonna keep going and we'll do it. And then something that is extremely helpful is programming. This helps you to be I'm going to say faster, more effective dowsers. And most of us know about programming. And if you don't, there is a wonderful book called Letters to Robin, and it's by Walt Woods, and it's an incredible dowsing tool for everybody, but especially if you're getting started. It's a free PDF download. I think you can also order like a book on Amazon. There's a few different places that you can order it, but it is also a free download. So this information is available to everyone. So what I would say about programs, we're going to do some programming tonight. So if you don't have this program, you can just do it along with me. And if you have already done it, great. You can just get familiar. And when you have a new pendulum, this is a great program and a process to do. And maybe you have multiple pendulums. Maybe you use pendulums for different you have different pendulums for different things. So a lot of healers will have different types of pendulums that do very specific things. So, and as you kind of keep going in this process, a lot of people will have different pendulums that they use for clearing or for healing or for, different things. So, and sometimes pendulums, as we all know, have a way of getting lost, right? They'll hide for a while. So you may have more than one pendulum. I carry one in my purse. I keep one at home. I have several. So sometimes when I can't find it, I can find it. So you can program all your pendulums, which I recommend you doing. So take a sip of water if you have a glass of water. We're moving some energy tonight. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do with programming is you need to have a clear yes or no. Some people are ask if, oh, should I move my pendulum or my pendulum is not moving? You can give it a little swing to neutral, right? You can get it going. And then even if you know your yes and no, I always calibrate, right? So for me, my yes is back and forth. My no is a circle, and every time I get ready to douse, I will calibrate that. Show me yes, show me no. So to do anything, you have to have a very clear and consistent yes and no. So once you have your yes and no, then you're going to inform your dowsing system. What are the parameters that you're using? How to respond to your questions, right? So you can always start with a neutral movement. So I like to qualify my yes and no. So, I'll say my name is Mary. I get a yes. My name is John. I get a no. If it asks basic things that the answer to. Don't have some wild question. Just keep it very simple. The today is October 15th, 2025. Yes. Today is December 4th, 1945. No. Okay. So you qualify. Now, when we do the primary program process, the step one is you get ready for the question. So that is getting permission to install. Your step two is you read the program that you want to install. And then step three, you're going to check to see if it's okay. So if you would like to do this, what's called the primary program process, we can do it right now. So if everyone has their yes and their no's clear, we'll proceed. So you're swinging your pendulum in neutral, and you say the primary program or foundation program is to be continually in effect until I choose to make changes, covering over all the primary controls, the limits, agreements, and dowsing responses. The purpose is to determine the amounts, effects, conditions, circumstances, influences, times, measurements, distances, effects. Did I say effects? Numbers, percentages, and other requested areas. The communications and the support is to be intercooperative and restricted to my superconscious, spirit, higher self, my awareness, subconscious, and related systems, and all other levels of my total being and their approved spirit guides, guardian angels, entities, helpers, and others chosen by me. I know that's a mouthful. This is also in Letters to Robin, but we're going to keep going. Influences such as misleading thoughts, images, wishes, or other conditions or methods from any source, physical or non-physical, of any kind, are not to take control of any of my systems or affect me adversely or cause incorrect dowsing answers without my permission. Time, as related to dowsing, is to be in my perceived time, unless otherwise requested. Answers are to be selected from all available knowledge and information sources. I like that, all available knowledge. It's not limited to just our knowledge. All available knowledge and information sources. The method of answering by the pendulum or any dowsing system is to be swinging, and then you put your, your yes and no. Swinging forward for yes, circle no, or whatever your specific yes and no is, or other agreed upon methods or systems indicating readiness for questions. There's a chart that will some people use when they're getting started, and it's ready to start. So you can program your pendulum to tell you when it's ready to start. So yeah, other agreed upon methods or systems indicating readiness for questions. General swinging or moving to yes or no, or other information indicating the most appropriate answer for the question asked, or the requested information, methods, or systems. Temporary changes may be made by me while dowsing, and then it will revert back to the original program after use. So say I need to address something that maybe is outside of the realm of the way I normally douse. I can instruct whatever I need, but then it's going to revert back. Program changes like adding, deleting, or changing may be made by me only by using a 3-step system of my choice. End of program. Thank you. So that's setting up your primary program or your foundation program. So that's just letting it know how you wish to be communicated with, what is allowed, what is not allowed. And you can create your own version. This is just a pretty thorough, I think, effective system that I use. So then a guidance program, which is, I think every dowser uses, or if you don't, I highly encourage you to use it. It's a guidance program called May I, Can I, Should I? So that's a 3-step installation program. So May I, Can I, Should I program, we can install it right now if you like, is to become a working part of all my dowsing programs and to be continually in effect until I make changes. When used in reference to dowsing questions, the may I, can I, should I is to have the following meaning. May I? That means, do I have permission and support to proceed and be involved? Very important. Can I? Do I have the ability to successfully dowse in this area, and am I ready? Sometimes it's not the right time. Should I? Considering all aspects related to this situation, would it be appropriate, proper, and suitable to dowse in this area at this time? End of program. Thank you. So that's your program, the can I, may I, should I. So once you have these programs installed, your process will go much faster when you're doing any kind of a dowsing. Something that I want to say is if you get a no on any of these areas, you stop. It's not, you're not going to get accurate, correct information. As much as you might want to continue to dowsing, respect the no. You can ask again later. Maybe the circumstances have changed. And sometimes I find it's the question. And when I correct the question and I check with the can I, may I, should I, then I have permission to dowse. So that's something to kind of think about. Okay, does everybody understand programs and the can I, may I, should I? Let me check real quick and see if we have any questions. Okay, I don't know what I did with everybody. Okay, I paused it. I guess if you have a question, you are welcome to unmute yourself. Okay, the next piece that is very important is your intention and your ethics. So your intentions might be well-meaning, but it can have your intentions, as you may know, can have consequences that are far beyond your limited self. So the true potential of dowsing involves the unfolding of your consciousness, and all dowsing really should be directed beyond the self for the highest good. You also want only relevant information, right? Like, think of this like Google, right? You put in that you are looking for, black shoes in size 8. You don't want red shoes to show up on your search. You want the black shoes. So you want relevant information. You don't want outside interference. And I cannot say this enough, although it's very hard, you really need to not have personal or emotional investment in your outcome. And if you do, we can kind of get to the problem solving on that. And there's something called blind dowsing. And maybe you have a friend that can dowse for you. But a lot of times we ask something that we have strong emotions about or that we're really invested in, it can very well affect your outcome and not necessarily be accurate. So remember how we meditated to get into that state of, neutrality? So that's where you want to be. You don't really want to have a preconceived idea. You don't want to make assumptions, or have an expectation about what the answer might be. So those are all really important things about intention. But also, I want to mention ethics. So, it's up to us to have our integrity and be ethical. So when you douse, is this harmless or is this harmful to someone or something, right? We don't cause harm. Is this non-intrusive or is it non-invasive? Are you being manipulative? A lot of times people, think that dowsing is like their own personal psychic source, right? And dowsers are very psychic and intuitive, but there's a distinction. There's a about manipulation. So the way you ask your question can also be very manipulative, right? Um, so that's something to consider. And are you trying to control the situation or the outcome, right? Those are all things to consider. And are you being greedy, right? Okay, what are the winning lottery numbers, for the Powerball? I would like to be a billionaire. As most of you guys know, that doesn't usually work. Actually, I don't know that I've ever heard of a dowser that doused correct number. I mean, for winning lottery pot. I mean, I think we can all be lucky and people have different things, but is greed motivating you? So that's something that you need to really think about. So let's see. Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is to what you might consider well-meaning might not be appropriate for the situation that you are dowsing for. So you just need to really be aware of that. Okay, so this is big. This is the mother lode right here. Clarity. What information do you actually want to know? The more specific you are, the better. When you're general or you're vague, it's like, I want black shoes. Well, if anybody's ever searched for black shoes, there's infinite styles of black shoes. And you either maybe have something in mind, or I don't know, maybe you want a sandal, maybe you want a heel, but you've got to be specific on what you are looking for to get information that will be of use to you. So I'm going to just give you some examples of this. So I had someone ask me, will their business be successful? And that's pretty vague, right? The You have to define success. What is it you really want to know? Do you want to know that you will be financially successful? And you know, again, that's vague, right? I mean, that's a direction. You're on the map. You want to figure out where you're going. You know the direction you're headed, but it's not quite clear. You're just going to go this way. Is that where you want to end up? Maybe, maybe not. So you need to drill deeper, right? Ask more questions. Um, do you want to know if this money, if this business will generate, X number of dollars this month or this year? Um, if you ask if it's going to be profitable, again, that's vague, right? Everyone does taxes. If you have a business, you can have a lot of expenses that would make you look not profitable, even though you were profitable, right? So that's kind of one of those gray, vague areas. Is success mean status to you? Are you going to be written up in the local paper or, win a Michelin star or, like what, what does success mean to you? Is your definition of success minimal effort with big financial rewards? Or is it being able to make a difference in your community, right? That there's a lot of things that you cannot assume that your definition of success is like a universal definition of success. So be specific. I also had someone who ask me if a new relationship was a good relationship. So, what did I do? I asked them to define what a good relationship is. This person has been married 5 times. You know, um, I would probably have a different definition of a good relationship than they would. So it's subjective. So I would have to ask that person, what are the components of what a good relationship is, right? Does that mean, is this a person that I can trust? Are they healthy? Are they healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially? Is this person kind and caring? Do they operate from integrity? Maybe even, what percentage of integrity do they operate from? You can do percentages on any of those things. Will they be loyal, right? Those are all things that people might consider part of a good relationship. Are we compatible romantically? Um, that's an important piece um, of a romantic relationship, right? Of a partnership, a love relationship. Will we be able to communicate clearly and effectively, right? So, that's the good relationship is too vague. And just because you have an idea of what that is, does not make that um, a correct question. So I would be as specific as you can. Whether you're dowsing for yourself or you're dowsing for others. Um, Sometimes you need to reverse engineer a question, right? You may have a topic that you want to know about, but you're not clear on how to get to it, right? So you could see with the relationship, you know, what information did we really want to know, right? What is a good relationship? And maybe, we just wanted to know, was this person, not going to hurt them, so you have to, this is, dowsing is being a detective, right? It's gathering that information. So the more information, the more you can be specific and fine tune. Another really, really, really important thing: do not assume the universe knows slang, right? Or your specific meaning of a word or a situation. Doesn't it that that's It does not always yield with accurate dowsing. Okay. Um, so like a lot of kids, I say kids, a lot of people use the word sick, like SIC. So as a positive adjective, like that's really cool, So that is not a question I would ask, as I am dowsing, because that will not translate. The a lot of times you can look up on a dictionary or an online explanation for if you want to get specific. So I would do that. I would not do something that, I don't know, is considered slang. Because your conscious mind might know what you're talking about, but your subconscious mind doesn't. Um, Especially when it comes to medical or technical terminology. So, one of my books, there was a guy who was like a medical dowser. He came up with all sorts of wonderful homeopathic remedies and helped people. But somebody came to him with a specific disease, and he thought he knew what that was, but he had a totally different understanding of what it was. And his dowsing was not accurate until he looked up what that, um, uh, you know, diagnosis specifically meant. And then he was able to be more specific in his dowsing and create, a remedy and, you know, something that was able to help that individual. So, you can also ask, if you understand you know what I mean? If you have enough understanding of whatever the word is to ask, right? So you can ask yourself when you're formulating, until it's like the more experience you have, the faster it goes. But as you're learning, use everything at your fingertips. Okay. Um, there's there's a lot available. So you think you have clarity on what you want to ask, but um, a lot of people don't. The I mean, when give you a little example of like with interior design, a lot of times people cannot tell me what they want. They think they maybe know, but they can usually say what they don't want. So it just requires some digging, and questions to. And that's also a situation where we may not have the same understanding of a particular style, right? What I consider traditional and you consider traditional styles could be completely different, right? That's where pictures come in handy, or, you know what I mean? That it will help. You just want more clarity. Clarity yields better results no matter what you're doing. So be as clear as you can in, what you want to know about your question. I mean, the question you always want to know usually is what is, what you want the outcome of something. So you can reverse engineer that way. So now we're to the good stuff. Formulating your question. So we have things to consider, a who, what, when, where, how much, now time and priority. So timing is one of those really tricky things I find in dowsing because we're fluid. Time is fluid. Things are changing, as you know, at a very rapid pace. So what might be true now may not be true, you know, tomorrow, next week. So time is kind of a tricky thing. So a lot of times you may want to start qualifying with now time, now. And also something that's really helpful when you're doing your question, maybe you have multiple things. You might want to know what the priority is. So especially like if you have steps that you need to do or you have health concerns, right? So you'll want to know what is, multiple things may test and be beneficial for you, but what's the priority? So, again, that's just more specific. You're drilling down. So, um, I'll give you some examples of things, and then we can have questions. So, health is a big thing that people are dowsing for. A lot of people, there's a lot going on in the world. I think we A lot of people have health concerns. So, so if you're dowsing for health, if you're like me, I have my own little mini store of supplements, right? For everything you can imagine. So, you can, or maybe you're looking for something at the health food store or online, you know, so you can say, is this specific supplement, whatever it is, or you can pick up the bottle if you have it, beneficial for my optimal well-being and highest good? So, that's a yes or no question. So if you get a yes, then Colleen Flanagan, I interviewed her. She's an Arizona dowser. She's written a book that I'll show you in a little bit. She says she's just wants to get her done. So she says if it is 80% or more beneficial, then she's going to do it. If it's not, she is not going to waste her time. So I've started asking, is this supplement, more than 80% beneficial for me? And if it is, then I do it. Um, and again, that's a yes or no. Um, there's a lot of charts that are available if you're a chart person. Uh, and if you don't know how to douse for percentages, you can draw a straight line on a piece of paper, zero being on one end, and you could have 100 on the other end, right? And it could even be by tens, 50 in the middle. And, you can douse like on a piece of paper. Um, so if I'm doing down and dirty, short and quick, I use the side of my hand like it's that piece of paper. So the area that's closest to my wrist is 0 and my pinky is 100. So I'll douse, to see what percentage something is. So you can douse on your hand anywhere. You can also douse for percentages by, is it 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, and as long as you keep getting a yes, you keep going. And when you get a no, that means you stop. So that's another way that you can douse for percentages. Um, and if something's only 10% beneficial, it just may not be worth your time, your energy, the money. So that is good to know. Let's see. So something you can always ask, how effective is X for me, right? This supplement for me, whatever it is you think you might need. Um, and then that's a great place where you ask about percentages. Something else, sometimes, what we take will have a side effect, right? That may not be beneficial. What percentage will this create a toxic side effect for me? Um, you can also ask about dosage, right? So once you've determined something is more than 80% beneficial, it's optimal for your well-being, your highest good, or whatever concern you had, um, how many times a day, right? So you do that with your numbers again. How many times a week? How many times a month, right? More specific questions, right? Should I take this for optimal outcome? So if you know yourself and you're not a 3 time a day pill person, you know, you can ask, if I take this 1 time a day, 7 days in a row, what what percentage will it be beneficial for me? Um, you can also say, what are the most beneficial and effective times of the day for this to be taken? You can also say, how compatible are the energies of whatever it is with my body? So I'll give you an example of that. So I had to have some dental work done a while back, and I think it was a filling. And so I know certain feelings are really not beneficial for me. So I wanted to, I asked the dentist to give me the specific name, of what the filling was called, what the ingredients were in it, as much information as I could get. And then I ask, is this biocompatible with my body? Is this compatible, with me? And one tested stronger than the other significantly. So that's the one I went with. So you can use this for anything, just ask, 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 ask. Don't We have to be our own advocates. And the way we do that is we ask questions. Your doctor does not always know best, and the more questions that you can ask, the better. You all are collaborating, right? It's a partnership. So you're not turning your will and your power over to a doctor or anyone else, right? You need to be your own advocate, so you need to ask, and not just assume that something will work for you or be harmonious or compatible with your body. Uh, and people that maybe have more serious health concerns, you can ask, is this health situation contributing to my spiritual soul self? Um, you know, what percentage am I benefiting from whatever this condition is, right? And then that gives you a whole other series of things to drill down towards. Am I open to receiving and learning from this? You may not, right? Um, how will how willing am I to receive experience and learning from this at this point in time, right? You might be willing, but you might not be willing at this point in time. Um, how open and capable am I to beneficially use this experience for beneficial growth and healing? Am I ready to release this condition? So, those are all good questions, right? And as you get that information, then it can lead to other questions that can help, right? Um, Maybe you want to have a list of treatments or remedies, if you have a specific health thing. So you can dowse which would be most beneficial to neutralize, this condition. And if you want to do like, what is the root cause of this health concern, right? So that's one of those multi-layered questions. So is it mental? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Is it ancestral or inherited? Right? So you can find out all those things, and maybe it's a percentage of each of those things. Then you can ask, what area would be most beneficial to address first? Right? Is it toxin, and what type of toxins? So that there's the health thing could be its whole own program, right? There's a lot of information, a lot of questions to ask about health. But I hope that kind of gives you some ideas on health. And then another question that I get is, you know, oh, should I move to Portugal? Well, that's not very specific, is it? It's too vague. So I would ask you, what are you hoping to experience there, right? Do you want a lower cost of living? Do you want a healthier lifestyle? Maybe you want romance. Maybe they have a high rate of single available men or whatever you're looking for, right? Um, you know, do you want community? Maybe you want spiritual growth. So those are all quite, you could chunk it down. And then another question kind of around that could be, Would Phoenix be a better place to live than Portugal? Again, too vague. Portugal is a big place. Pick a city, you know. So one way you could word it would be, would I be happier and enjoy a better quality of living in Lisbon, Portugal, or Phoenix, Arizona? And you can use percentages. So I am going to stop my screen share for a second and I'm going to open this up so we can, um, let me figure out how to do this. So we can ask questions and then we'll get to problem solving here in a minute. Okay. Okay, so who has a question that they would like to ask that we can kind of walk through the process? If you do, you can unmute yourself or wave at me or something, and I'll unmute you. Does anybody have a question that they would like to, we can douse together and fine tune?
I'll I'll go as a guinea pig.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Asal.
Hi, Mary. Um, well, I've been dowsing these questions, but it's really good to get feedback on it. So I'm in a situation that basically two or three things in my career are going forward in a powerful way. But I just actually can't call it my career because they're two different fields. One is it's related to yoga therapy, Ayurveda, meditation, teaching, working with clients. And the other one is something that has become a passion of mine, which is substitute teaching for little bitty children and children on the spectrum, special education. So it's like there's this dance going on, like, all of a sudden there's a lot of support in the community for the Ayurvedic and yogic trainings. And at the same time, I feel like the teachers are grabbing me really quickly. So I don't really know what question, like how to pose this question. Like, perhaps, is it beneficial for me to continue with both these routes and just dedicate times in the week to each and carry forward instead of focusing on one?
So I hear that you are a little caught between the either or the and.
Hmm.
Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So okay. Well, and when you talked about career, what's important to you in your career? What are like some key components? So let's chunk it down a little bit.
Mm, Joy is one.
Okay.
Service,
Okay.
being able to share who I am and what I know with others. In one of them, I get to share my experiences and expertise. In the other one, I get to share being in the moment. It's sometimes trying, but the younger they are, or let's say if they are on the spectrum, then it becomes effortless and quite joyful. Like I don't even understand, like, oh, wow, the day is over. Really?
So, and obviously you need to support yourself,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Um, and can you do that with one more than the other, or are they both
I
financially
would
supporting?
say momentarily the substitute teaching is more reliable,
Hmm.
but I feel like there is momentum being built behind the other practice.
Okay. But there are things that you love about both of them. So,
Yes.
are you feeling like you have to choose one or the other?
Maybe right now I need to actually go on with both.
Well, I'm just saying, is that, I guess we could ask the question, is that coming from you, or is that coming from some outside influence?
Ah, that's pretty good.
Right? Because a lot of times, I'll just say parents or people that are influential to us feel like you have to pick a path and go forward and choose that, and you don't stray from it. That's the path to success, right? So sometimes we have beliefs that
Ah,
can
yeah.
just be operating, right? And then it creates this struggle and vagueness and not clarity, and I'm doing it wrong, and all the tapes that start playing, right? So to me, what it sounds like you're doing is connected, right? It's interrelated. It's
Mm.
um, your Ayurvedic and very much being in touch with the body and the senses and the energy. That's the foundation. That's the umbrella. And you're able to reach different segments of the community through those gifts that you share. So you're just choosing right now to kind of share that with special needs on the spectrum kids, right? Does that kind of
Yeah,
sound
partially, yes, yes.
so? So I think once you get somebody else's voice out of your head, right? You clear that belief. There's a lot of ways to clear beliefs, but when you do that, so then the question would be, um, is it, you know, would it be, I want to use the word rewarding, but you could fill in whatever your word is, rewarding to um, continue both paths, you know, for work at this time, right? And then what percentage, is it rewarding? And you figure out what your sweet spot of percentage is. And then you can even drill down if you want to do it. Right now you may need the consistency of the financial thing with school. So, and maybe that's something you've been asking for. So the consistency, is financial consistency a priority for me at this time, right? The is the and maybe you have not allowed yourself to think outside the box a little bit with the other work you do. Um, Maybe you're offering retreats, that are specific blocks of time with the other things, or you set up some kind of a program that you can do. You can figure out if you have so many days in the week that you want to devote and work, right? Or what percentage is my time best spent dedicated to this part of my work? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, right on. Yeah, thank you.
And I think there's a lot of opportunities. Would it be beneficial for me to take my Ayurvedic and somatic experience and bring it to the families of these special needs kids?
Mhm.
It's probably much more interwoven than you think, but that either or gets us into trouble, I think. Does that did that help?
Yeah, very much. Thank you. Yeah. And I was able to establish, and it was a very good tip that you said, like reaching, like in your case, 80%. And I had to like establish that mine was 85.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can use that as a benchmark.
Right. And you can also set it up that you can set things up that you want a percentage of, you want the consistent income, which what it's that clarity. What do I want, right? I want consistent income, but I also want to be able to serve both both members of the community, right? The kids and the adults who need me. So then it would be, the best way for me to do that is, and you figure out different questions, right? Would that be to have a retreat once a month or have a ongoing group that I can support people online? You know what I mean? Like there's all sorts of different ways that you could do that. It doesn't have to be, you know, if you're into
Fixed.
teaching that you must leave all your other stuff behind, right? We
Yeah,
have that.
thank you.
I have
No,
a
this is
cosmic
great.
ampersand, right? So, yeah. Does anybody else have a question they want to have some assistance with? Okay, let's see. Do you start with your pendulum still and then ask questions and wait for yes or no? No, I start, I just call it neutral. I'll give it a little spin and then, say show me yes, and then I'll say show me no, right? So that's how I do. So it doesn't, I'm not spinning it in a yes or a no. I'm just giving it a movement. I don't know if that helped, Robin. Let me see if there is anything else. Okay, yeah, we talked about either or. All right. Okay, well then we have problem solving. So I think you guys are kind of starting to get to the being specific, right? The clarity, the what information do you really want to know? Chunk it down to the very basic, bills have to get paid. Consistent income makes a tremendous difference, right? And what else is possible. So okay, let's see. So things to think about when you're problem solving, like if you're not getting accurate answers. So some of these are very simple, but they matter. Are you dehydrated? So that can happen very easily. Like we're moving a lot of energy and I can feel how thirsty I am. So I keep taking sips of water. Being dehydrated can give you, inconsistent information. Is your clothing too constrictive, right? Are you wearing something that's too tight that just sort of kind of blocks your energy flow? It's distracting. It's simple, but that can make a difference. Are you being affected by electronic devices, right? We are surrounded by Wi-Fi, computers, phones. You might be a little more sensitive to EMFs. Is your polarity reversed? This happens a lot. So a very simple way with your polarity reversed, like you may get, you know, yes, my name is John, right? When your name is not John. So, I mean, it's kind of, that's why I always calibrate, right? To see where I'm at. But so there's 2 points kind of right below your collarbone that I think it's called K27, and you can rub those. And that's one simple way that you can help that will, if your polarity is reversed, that it will get you back on track. So, yeah, it might be a little tender. So another thing that if you have a problem getting a clear answer or even really formulating a good question is, do you have some hidden fears going on, right? Is there like a subconscious program happening I'm going to use you as all as your thing. It might not have been a fear, but I think there was probably like a belief, or someone else's, influence really weighing, but on a subconscious level. And fears can, especially like when it's around work or career or something that we consider significant, maybe we have a fear of making a mistake, making the wrong decision. And so sometimes that will stop us, or we get to that place where it's like, uh, not only do you not want to make a mistake, but it can be paralyzing, right? And you think you have to choose this path because that's logical or what's approved, or you know all those things. So fear is a big one. So if you find yourself feeling kind of stuck, check and see, if there's a fear program running, and what percentage. And sometimes we need help with our fear programs. Let's see. And sometimes we might have a fear that we don't want a particular answer, right? We might be emotionally attached, right? Maybe you're in a relationship that is not healthy, and you really know the answer, and you're dowsing, but you don't want to accept the answer, right? So you want to kind of influence that answer because maybe you don't want to. Your fear is, I will be alone, if I address this unhealthy situation or this relationship, and that there's some other program going on. So that stuff is sneaky. So fear is a big thing that will get in there and kind of scramble things. The Something else, don't repeatedly ask the same question thinking that you're going to get the answer that you want. That just really does not work. That is not that is not a helpful thing to do. Um, and a lot of times people will not focus on the question, but they're going to focus on the outcome that they want, right? Oh, I really want this deal to go through. I really want this deal to go through. I really want this deal to go through. Will this deal go through? That's not how you ask the question, right? That will not be, typically will not be an accurate dowsing situation. Your body might be overloaded with chemical or environmental toxins, right? So that could be a thing. You can make a little checklist, right, for yourself, and check, if you find yourself getting wonky answers, or, maybe no answer. Make a little list that you can douse for yourself, to see if what the problem might be. Like we talked about, a big thing is clarity with your language, being really clear on what your language states. I like to state things in the positive, and yeah, specific, specific, specific. I cannot say that enough. Sometimes people get into victimization, or maybe they're being punishing themselves, right? Because they think they're not teachable, or they can't learn dowsing, they're not doing it right. Sometimes they will blame others, or they blame themselves. Well, it's like your dad. Well, this situation, probably this person's not going to sign the deal because I didn't close the sale, very well. Or if that's not a question, right? I mean, that's already creating an outcome that you don't want, right? That you've already set up for yourself. So, you can ask a different question. You want to close the sale, you know, you can ask questions on what the best way, what does this person need to hear? What, um, you know, are you offering what that they need? Just different kinds of things like that. Beliefs, 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 beliefs can affect an accurate outcome, right? We have a lot of beliefs. We have a lot of programs thoughts, memories that can adversely affect your condition, the condition that you're maybe trying to dowse. So you can dowse questions. What percentage is this inherited? What percentage is this self-imposed? And then there's always things you can do about it, right? You can neutralize that energy, right? So like us all, once she recognized that there was a program, she was having interference, okay, well, I'm going to neutralize, which Raymond Grace method, right? So you go counterclockwise. I'm going to neutralize this, this, this fear program, this belief, this influence from my family. So then, you can transform that energy into the most appropriate and highest good for the person, for your situation. Okay, I'm going to look back at my little slides and see if there is anything else that we missed on this. Hang on here. Did I share? That didn't share. Let's try it again. Let's see if I can. All right, I may not be able to. We'll see. Okay. That may be it for the slideshow. Basically, I think we've gone through all those things. I guess I would say, does anyone else have any questions as we wrap up? Did you find this helpful? You guys all got quiet? You can unmute yourself. You can.
Oh, Mary, I think that it's always so helpful to go over the things that you've talked about tonight, putting them in perspective, because I think we can get into a routine of always expecting that the answers that we get are what we're supposed to get, kind of get overconfident without making sure that we're clear and balanced. And it would only be if you got something really outrageous where it would get your attention. But I think it's important to always consider these things. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad it was helpful. Let's see. Extremely helpful and illuminating. Thank you. Oh, good. I'm glad that you guys find it helpful. And it's just something, play with it. I was going to talk about tools. So things that are really helpful. This is Raymond Grace's book, The Future is Yours. So he has lots of good tools, lots of videos, wonderful things. I find him to be he's just very, his mentality is, why not? If you think you can, you can, so he just kind of forges ahead and does stuff. So I think he's extremely helpful if you want to scramble the energy, change the energy, shift, right, clear things. This is a really good book. It's called Anyone Can Dowse for Better Health. And this is by Arthur Bailey. So he's kind of tells a story about how he dowses for health and his whole process. And he created a whole set of flower essences. And anyway, so in kind of his whole process with dowsing and asking questions about things. Okay, this is great. Fearless Accurate Dowsing by Colleen Flanagan. She is in Arizona, and I did actually interview her. So if you look up on the Lone Star Dowsers website, we have a good thing. She's got multiple books on dowsing, and they're all very digestible. She is also an EFT practitioner. So if you guys know about, tapping, that's a great way to, you can if you find yourself, like if we kind of went over the problem solving questions, if you find yourself feeling a little stuck on some of those things, you can tap your way through it. So she's got tons of little videos to tap your way through things. Maybe you're still not feeling confident about your clarity in formulating a question, right? So you could tap on that, right? You could scramble the energy and neutralize it. You can do some belief work. You can do emotion code work. There's some tons of times, tools and things that you can use. And this is a really special book. It's called the Dowsers Workbook and Resource List. And this is by an Australian dowser called Wynette Delaney. And I forget, somebody brought this to a dowsing meeting and had some of her books to sell. So I bought this. And she has tons. I mean, this is this thick. It is charts. So it's just very, so it's really about if you want to ask questions for specific things. She has a lot of things for causes for health, and just tons of good questions. And you can create your own chart. Don't be afraid to make a chart. You can, if you've ever worked with a homeopath or a naturopath, they have whole books and lists. So they'll just douse by the page, right? Anything on this page that, anything on this page. I mean, you can expedite your thing and set up a program, right? When you're doing it so that it's the same every time. So create your own chart, and maybe it's maybe it could be, for us all, it could be about, is my energy best used in, with an Ayurvedic practice, with yogic, energy, with, what would be the best solution for this client or for me at this time, or, I mean, you can create list of everything, right? List, charts. There's all sorts of amazing tools. You're only limited by your imagination. So, okay. Yeah, there's no end to creativity. Exactly. So, all right. Well, I will say thank you so much for letting me share I've been wanting to share about asking questions. And I think as you even just use Google search now, you're probably going to go at it a little differently, right? More specific, because it's just a better outcome every time. And use your programs to, the can I, may I, should I, that just expedites your process. And maybe you have your cheat sheet if you're not getting chart. If you're not getting your correct, if you're having problems that you want to solve with your questions, create your cheat sheet of what might be causing the not for it not to be accurate. So then you can address whatever those are. So there you have it. You guys can get hold of me at livebeautifully.net, wholelifedesign.net. I can offer interior design. I can do coaching, consulting classes. I do lots of things. So I'm happy to help and be of service however I can. And I thank you all for tuning in, and share this with other dowsers and people that you think would benefit from it.